Working capital. Working capital is a financial metric which represents operating liquidity available to a business. The goal of working capital management is to ensure that the firm is able to continue its operations, that it has sufficient cash flow to satisfy both maturing short-term debt and upcoming operational expenses. Working capital typically means the firm's holding current or short-term assets such as cash, receivables, inventory, and marketable securities. These items are also referred to as circulating capital. If a company's current assets do not exceed the current liabilities, then it may run into trouble paying back creditors in the short term. Working capital also gives investors an idea of the company's underlying operational efficiency. So working capital equals current assets minus current liabilities. Working capital ratio, current assets over current liabilities. The working capital ratio indicates whether a company has enough short-term assets to cover its short-term debt. A high working capital ratio isn't always a good thing. It could indicate that they have too much inventory or that they are not investing in excess cash. Anything below 1 indicates negative, while anything over 2 means a company is not investing excess assets. Ratio between 1.2 and 2 is sufficient. There is a possible interpretation of working capital concept, the balance sheet concept. There are two interpretations of working capital under the balance sheet concept: the excess of current assets over current liabilities, and the gross or current assets. The firm has to maintain cash balance to pay the bills as they come due. In addition, the company must invest their inventories to fill customers' orders promptly. And finally, the company invests in accounts receivable to extend credit to customers. Operating cycle equal to the length of the inventory and receivable conversion periods. Every business concern should have adequate working capital to run its business operations. It should have neither redundant or excess working capital nor inadequate or shortage of working capital. Disadvantages of redundant or excess working capital: idle funds, non-profitable for business, unnecessary purchasing, excessive debtors, overall inefficiency. Where there is excessive working capital, creditworthiness suffers. Due to low rate of return, market value of shares may fall. Importance of cash. When planning the short or long-term funding requirements of a business, it is more important to forecast the likely cash requirements than to project profitability. Cash versus profit. Sales and costs, and therefore profits, do not necessarily coincide their associated cash inflows and outflows. Components of working capital: cash, creditors, inventory, debtors. Importance of working capital. It's important we work out the right level of working capital you will need. High working capital means the business has surplus funds. Low may indicate that your business is facing financial difficulties.
Working capital financing. Fund-based. Cash credit, overdraft, bills discounting, and working capital demand loan. Non-fund based. Letter of credit, bank guarantee. Lastly, structured product. Factoring, commercial paper, securitization of receivables, buyers or supplier credit. Float. Any delay in the process of converting materials and labor to receipt of payment involves cost or float cost. Similarly, any delay in making payments will also give rise to float, but this time to our advantage. What is float? Float. Definition of bank float: the time lost between a payer making a payment and a beneficiary receiving value. Cost of float is the principal amount due times number of days times cost of funds. Payables. Critical questions. What is due? When it is due, where should the payment be sent? How should the payment be sent? Are there funds to cover the payment? Is the payment properly authorized? Short-term investing. The decision process. How much do I have to invest per currency? How long do I have to invest it? Where are the funds located? What is my appetite for risk? Bills of exchange, foreign currency, commercial, GBP, eligible, ineligible, trade bills. APL, Apollo Tubes Ltd, among the three top manufacturers of the steel tubes, pipes and hollow sections in India. Delhi-based with 5 manufacturing locations at northern, southern and western part of the India with installed capacities 1/2 million MTPA. Despite a slowdown in the Indian economy, company has recorded a gross sales growth of 56% over 2010 to 2011. EBITDA growth of 26.19% and net profit growth of 13.83%. Intends to double production capacity to 1 million tons per annum by 2015 and generating revenues worth $1 billion, and plan to increase presence in new geographies including Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Working capital cycle. First is the APL Apollo Tubes Ltd working capital cycle, and the second is the tubes industry working capital cycle. Another is the operating cycle in number of days. The current ratio analysis. Recommendation. The company should increase its creditors cycle to 60 days as per the industry benchmark. The company can also look for channel financing through contractual arrangement with its present lender. The company has recently shown tremendous growth towards trading goods. The company should reduce its inventory through efficient supply chain management. The company should also explore the possibilities of factoring keeping in mind the factoring cost, both recourse and non-recourse, vis-a-vis collection cost and bad debt as a percentage of sale. The company has improved its rating from LBBB+ to A- long-term as per recent ICRA rating. The company can also go for financing its working capital through commercial paper if accessible, which is available at a lower cost. Negative working capital also has its pros and cons. First is the pros. Signifies efficient working capital management, saving in interest expenses, less risk of bad debt, for example, automobile industry. The cons are risk of failure to meet short-term obligations, may result in lower credit rating because of failure or delay in payments. Bank may be charged higher interest rate. For example, steel industry.